And welcome to Torah Talks Chazaq special program, Tuesday night guests. We have with us a very dear friend of ours, Rabbi Yehoshua Zitron. Rabbi, welcome. How you doing?
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Thank you so much for, inviting me on this. It's always amazing to be part of anything Chazaq related. It's so amazing the work that you do, and just to be a part of it, it's just a tremendous chizuk for me. But it happens to be, it's a schus. It's a huge schus. So thank you so much for having me.
Rabbi Zitron, love the energy. I feel it through the screen. Exciting. And Baruch Hashem, the Rabbi Zitron has been giving shiurim for many, many years, speaking for Chazaq and many other organizations. And before we jump into tonight's exciting topic, which is the secret path to relationships, Rabbi, if you give us a little bit of a background of yourself, the great work you're involved with.
Yes, of course. So my work in the club, my work as a speaker, I guess we could call it, began about 12 years ago, and it began kind of by accident. I wasn't planning, I wasn't intending it, to the point that 15, 20 years ago, if you would have asked me, what's your plans in the future or whatever it is, I would have never even begun to think as being an option. But the really short version is I had a friend of mine, a very close chaver of mine, a friend of mine that was also my chavrusa, my learning partner. And he was unfortunately nifter, very, very young. And what happened was that he used to learn with a group of boys, Bukharian boys. And and they knew that we were chavrusa. So long story short, they came over to me. One of the guys came over to me and he's like, listen, we don't have, unfortunately, because of the passing, the early passing of our dear friend, we don't have anything. Can you, take over and learn? So I kind of started with that. And then one thing led to another, one share led to another. It started off as a small chavura, and then it ended up branching out to a share. And so it ended up, I kind of was placed in this. I can't take any credit that I worked hard to get to where I was. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it to me, speak. Obviously, I, do my hishtadlus and preparing and gathering whatever information that I need to, but it happened to be, it's a schus that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me, and my focus became more towards the kiruv world, to get people closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to realize the beauty of Yiddishkeit, Judaism, and how amazing it is and how enjoyable it is. And people look at it as a negative, which really it's because I can't do this and I can't do I have to eat this. So people look at it as so much restrictions, but in a sense, it's a beautiful relationship. And any relationships has restrictions. You have, when you get married, you're restricted to a certain one, but it's worth it because the positive is so much greater. So the idea beyond Judaism being beautiful and amazing is unfortunately, overlooked. And it's interesting because I started focusing a lot on the kiruv world, on people that are not so religious, or people were religious at one point and they went off, and then they're slowly coming back. But from the audience that come and listen, it happens to be that I get a lot of regular from religious people. They're like, wait, this is an interesting angle that it's not always taught in yeshivas, and it's not always taught in the Jewish schools. So Baruch Hashem, I was a zocha to be able to be part of this great, kiruv movement, and I'm so happy that I had the merit to be able to contribute the little that I do.
Right, amazing, unbelievable. It's true. Many great things happen, by chance, in a sense that we also, when we started Chazaq, we weren't planning for it to be an organization, and we were just doing some good things, organizing a weekly newsletter, and then we decided to organize a small shir, which ended up being a massive shir. And one thing led to the next, and Baruch Hashem, thank God, it's spreading so much Torah, but we should never be satisfied. We have to always do more because the Geula is not here yet. So anyways, Rabbi Zitron, we're going to jump into tonight's topic, which is the secret path to relationships. People are spending thousands of dollars in the pursuit of happiness, by taking trips right now in the summer. People are going on vacations. People are buying fancy cars. But what is the proper definition of happiness, and how does one achieve it?
So I think when we're dealing with something called definition, everybody defines something a little bit differently because it's their own. There is a true definition, if you want to call it a fact, but there's also what people define as happiness. So a single guy would think happiness is when I get married. A couple that doesn't have any children, happiness is when I have children. Somebody who's struggling financially, happiness is when I achieve success in that area, and that's when I'll achieve the contentment and happiness in my life. And it's all correct that all these things can attribute to happiness, but the source of happiness. The real definition of happiness is not dependent on outside forces. In fact, the Hebrew word for happiness is, to be happy, is besimcha. The very common, idea behind this, besimcha, you mix around the words, is machshava. It's a thought process. Really, happiness is all dependent on your inside, not on your outside. Granted, it does help. You're a multi-billionaire. It's going to help. Not saying that everybody wealthy has it, the happiness, but it does help. You married happily, it's going to help. You have kids, they're good kids, it's going to help. But the definition, I think, is really something that's internal. That's your thought process. So when we think about the idea of happiness and we chase certain things that we feel is going to give us that happiness, we're sort of chasing a symptom, but we're not getting to the root of the problem. And I've spoken to people where they have everything and then they have nothing. Like they have everything, but unfortunately they're empty inside. And then you have people, and this is the greatest, because like the greatest amount of like the power that I see what people have when they have like almost nothing and they're so happy. Like there's like a few people that come to mind. I know, a woman who is, going through so much in her life, like so much from all angles, from health, from fun, everything. And I haven't met a happier person. And it's crazy when I think about it. I guess I have the ability, or anybody who deals in the public has an ability to kind of look at things a little bit in a bird's eye view, like looking down. Because when we're just dealing with ourselves, all we could see is ourselves. And many people think, you know what, my neighbor, he is so successful. Everything is great in his life. But the rabbi of the community knows that no, your neighbor is suffering from X, Y, and Z. You're suffering from A, B, and C. Everybody's got their peckle. Everybody's got their thing that they are dealing with. The idea behind happiness is knowing how to deal with what you're going through and channel it to not affect your state of mind, which is your thought process of being happy. So I think if I could summarize, the idea of happiness is your state of mind and how you relate to outside forces.
Powerful, amazing, love it. And we actually see this in this upcoming week's Parsha Shalach, where there were the spies that went into Israel, into Canaan, to check out the land. And they said that we looked like grasshoppers in our eyes, and so we were in their eyes. Their mind, they perceive themselves as small, and that's the way others perceive them as well. Like the rabbi is saying, happiness is a mindset. It's powerful, amazing. So, Rabbi, we're Yehudim, we're Jews, and Yehudim comes from the word of hodaya, which is thanks. So we often mistakenly define hakarat tov, as thank you, but we know that hakarat tov literally means to recognize the good, right? So how will recognizing the good improve our relationships in life?
Okay, so I think that this is actually a powerful tool that often goes unnoticed and untapped, if I may, where and I'll explain. Let me back it up a little bit. So we all know that mood affects your response to things. So an example, somebody just got laid off. His wife is so upset at him, just screaming and threw some dishes. He's in the dumps, right? We could go on to explain it, but his kids are causing problems, or they speak back to him. Like everything is, and he's driving, and some guy goes in front and cuts him off. Like really aggressively, as they, unfortunately, there's like one or two drivers in the tri-state area that drive really aggressively. So we know that every once in a while we come across, it's the same person that drive across aggressively, and then there's the response. So what's going to be the response? So somebody who is in a very rotten mood and sour mood, the response is going to be like, it's just going to blow the lid. It's going to go to a point where he's going to get upset. It's going to ruin his day even more. If he has a chance to scream, he'll scream. Sometimes he'll wave a certain hand or a certain finger. There's a certain thing that people will do. They just get so angry, they can't hold themselves back. Then imagine the same scenario, but this guy has a successful, let's change. This guy just won the lottery. His wife loves him unconditionally. His kids shower praises at him every time he wakes up. He's the king of the kingdom. And someone just cuts him off. He just got the best news. He won the lottery. Is it going to matter to him? Okay, it's going to be one of those people like, go, sit over there in the corner and just let everybody go, to the point that even somebody gives him a fender bender, He's going to go, I'll be like, don't worry about it. Life is great. Why am I going to worry about this little thing? I got $10 billion that I just won. I have an amazing wife and amazing kids. Am I going to worry about this little thing? Come on. Okay, so you cut me off. Who cares? So we see the mood affects our response. So if you have a happier mood, your relationships are going to be better. Your work is going to be better. You're going to be more productive, more effective. Multi-billion-dollar companies spend a lot of money. Some of them have an in-house psychiatrist, an in-house psychologist, so they could talk. Now, some yeshivas are starting to do that, where they have, a therapist on staff, because if a kid is happy, they could achieve a lot more than if a kid is depressed, sad, going through something. So our mood not only affects on our relationships, but it also affects on our productivity, on how much we will be effective, our relationship with God, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's gonna affect. So the mood affects everything. Now, when you zero in on relationships, it does, if you're a happy person and your spouse does something to you, you're not going to sweat it. It'd be like, okay, fine. So, dinner wasn't ready, or, my husband, didn't buy me a present for my birthday, whatever it is. It's like, all right, but everything else is amazing. So the idea behind gratitude is that when you are a grateful person, you see so much amazingness stuff all around you. Yes, we all have stuff that we're going through, and we all have difficulties that we're going through, but a grateful person focuses on the positive, and then inside he's positive. So gratitude brings positivity, which brings you contentment, which brings you happiness. And when you have happiness, your relationships are all of a sudden, okay, nishkefelach, not the biggest deal if my wife did this and my husband did this. So I think the secret behind it, and we're just scratching the surface over here, but the idea behind it is that if you're a grateful person, then you will be happier. If you will be happier, your relationships will be better. You won't sweat the small stuff, as they say. You're not going to be bothered by it because I just won the lottery. My wife married me. Can you imagine that? Like me, the lowest person, she married me. My kids actually respect me. Like I'm a nothing. I like it. So the gratitude changes so much that even when we go and we have in our relationships with God, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so we pray for something and maybe we don't get it, or we don't get it yet, I should rather say. But if we realize how much God has given us, then we'll be like, wait a minute, God is awesome. Like, this is unbelievable. Okay, fine. So I didn't get this yet, but it's just going to strengthen our relationship with God. And when you have a strong relationship with God, then you're going to be able to increase on the observance. You're going to be able to increase on your relationship with it. So I think gratitude is something that has such a powerful underlining effect that it affects every aspect of our life, from business to spouse relationships, to our relationships with God, to relationships with our kids. It touches everything.
So what you're trying to say, Rabbi, is that gratitude, happiness, and relationships are one and the same. They're all connected.
Yeah, 100%. There is other ways to have good relationships and other ways to be happy. This is just a path, but I think it's a strong path that will accomplish tremendous amount. And people, unfortunately, don't utilize this important thing, besides the fact that you're being grateful. You're just going to be happy. Who doesn't want to be happy, right? We all have something, but if we all have issues, but if we contemplate on our positive things that we have, it makes us happy. It doesn't hurt anybody other than ourselves to be sad, depressed, anxious, annoyed. It doesn't affect the person that you have a grudge against. It affects only us.
And Rabbi was constantly mentioning about winning the lottery and winning the lottery. Really, just for the record, okay, a lot of people, according to what I understand, that win the lottery, and they used to, polish shoes, they used to sell hot dogs on the streets, right? They would win the millions or the billions, whatever it is, and then after a few years, they didn't earn the money. Easy come, easy go. So they go back to their original jobs. So in a sense, that a person that earns and works for his money is also more appreciative, and that's a concept to take to heart. Rabbi Zitron, very, very inspiring, very, very, very powerful. So if you would have to, you're mentioning a lot about the lottery. Unfortunately, not everyone wins the lottery. So is there a way to inspire those that have not won the lottery, or unfortunately are not going through a good relationship, or shalom bayis, or peace in the home and things like that, to inspire them to continue on this path, like you're saying, of simcha, of happiness, of gratefulness, etc.?
Right. So it's interesting one. I do like to speak about lottery because lottery is something that people can relate to, and it's like, oh, okay, fine. I had nothing, and all of a sudden I have everything. So it's like
Rabbi, who relates to that? You know who won the lottery? Let me introduce
I
you to that,
don't know
please.
anybody that won. But the truth of the matter is really we all won the lottery. There's a beautiful acronym. So Ashir in Hebrew, wealth, a rich person is Ashir. Ashir, it stands for Einayim Shinayim Yadayim Raglayim. Eyes, Einayim is eyes, Shinayim is teeth, Yadayim is hands, Raglayim is feet. Who's a wealthy person? Somebody who has eyes, teeth, hands, and feet.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset, right? It's a mindset. So in a sense, when we look at like who won the lottery, I think if anybody looks in their life, they won the lottery in some aspect, maybe not financially, and sometimes financially. People don't realize when I hear people's stories and how they go and how they tell me how they got into a certain business and they were successful. It wasn't because of their geniusness. Yes, some people are very smart and they know how to capitalize and they know how to move investments around and they know what they're doing. But so many people, in fact, most of the people that I spoke to that were successful and very wealthy in the business, just either happened to get into the business by accident, were placed in a certain situation, or they even told me like I happened to get a certain client that just boomed everything, and it wasn't like anything to do. So in a sense, what's a lottery? A lottery is like something that you did a very little work and you got a lot. But when we look at it, how much work did we got a lot? Like anybody who has an apartment, you did a little bit of work, but you have a roof over your shoulder. You have a house, you have a wife. How many people? Some people the first date, second, third, fourth, 5 people they date, and then they find their spouse. Some people, unfortunately, more. But I think if we look inside, we can each find a lottery in each one of our lives of what we want. We just have to focus on the good. So the question is like, so how do we do that? One thing that I do, and I try to spread this out as much. I think it's an amazing idea. Is that I think every night a person should do to themselves, think and tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tell God 5 things that you're grateful for. Before you go to sleep, just say 5 things that you're grateful for. To the point that I, on the Shabbos table, when we don't have guests, because my kids are a little bit shy when we have guests, we don't have guests, after the Dvar Torah that I say, we each go around the table, me, my wife, all my kids, they go around and they say 5 things that they're grateful for. So you have little kids, I have a 6-year-old that goes, and I have a 13-year-old that goes, and they go and they each go and they say 5 things. And it's beautiful to hear where a 6-year-old will say like, thankful to Hashem that we have a car, and it's a mindset that we have to start beginning to think about. So I think a simple way to do it is every day, try, again, you might forget some of the days, but try every single day, 5 things that you're grateful for. It doesn't have to be amazing things. Sometimes it could be that you have eyes, teeth, hands, feet, whatever it is. Even as long as we begin to focus and realize that we have so much good that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to us, once we tap into that knowledge, our whole viewpoint is going to change. So whether we're a billionaire, a millionaire, or lacking anything in between, we could still focus on things that we have good. And it's a huge school. It's a huge school that when you have gratitude, it brings so much blessings. So maybe we have blessings in one area. If we focus on the positivity, that brings us tremendous amount of let's call it spiritual power, right? You're thankful. You have somebody, the example that I like to use is that if you have somebody that's going and collecting tzedakah, charity, comes to your door, and you give them $1, and this person starts praising you from today until tomorrow, giving you, all of a sudden he becomes the Baba Sali over there, and he's giving you a thought from today until tomorrow to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, from your Panasat to your Shalom Bayis to your Nacha, everything in all areas. What do you want to do to that person? Be like, hold on 1 second. You just want to give more money to that person. They were so grateful. All you gave them is $1, and they spent a minute giving you a blessing. Versus you have the other scenario where you give someone $20 and then they do the look into your wallet and be like, oh, by the way, I have another 15 children that are orphans that are living by me. They don't have any hands, feet, teeth, or eyes. Can you please increase that money? And they go, instead of saying thank you for what they got, they're like, can you give me more? Like, oh, we really need the money. Who do you want to give more money to? Do you want to give more money to the person that said, please, like, thank you so much for everything that you've done? Or do you want to give them more money to somebody who says, can I please have more? Obviously, we want to give money to we have more. So it's a tremendous, power when we should always ask for this proper. We should always ask God for everything that we need and more. But if we're thankful, that makes that tefillah so powerful. We say Moedim, we say this in our tefillah every single day, where we have that gratitude in there. But sometimes we have to just say it a little bit more with a thought process. So be like, wait a minute, yeah, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we get to a higher level, we can begin to start thanking God on things that are problematic to us, because we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, a master plan, and everything that happens is for the best.
Having an attitude of gratitude, how important it is.
Yeah.
Powerful, amazing.
Yeah.
The Rabbi Zitron, Torah talks, our custom is to have a final message and, one final grand slam from the speaker, from the rabbi. If we could have you leave off for our broad audience.
Okay, so I want to share with you something that I thought about yesterday when I was driving my kids to yeshiva. It's a thought. It's still a work in progress, but I think it's a very, very interesting thought. And I was thinking, there's a very common idea that the more sophisticated something is, the greater the potential, right? So let's say you look at inventions, right? So a pair of pants is sophisticated to the level that it covers you and does whatever it needs to, but a phone is much more sophisticated. So what has more potential, a pair of pants or a phone? Obviously, a phone has more potential. But when you look at the difference between man inventions and HaKadosh, God's creation, God's not inventions, God's creations, there is a difference when you look at the potential of the creation. So when you look at anything, let's say in technology, a phone, a computer, a car, as time goes on, the potential decreases. The battery is not as good, the CPU, the processing is not as powerful. Everything decreases over time in man's creation, which is very interesting, because the more sophisticated, we said, is the more potential. Phones will only last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. If you're really able to do it, you could stretch it out for a little bit longer than that, but there's a limit to where it goes. Pens, which is less sophisticated, can last 50 years. It can last, maybe it shouldn't, but I know my grandfather lived, till 102.
Wow.
And he got a bracha from Elchana Wasserman for Arichas Yamin. And he had, I remember in his suits, when he bought it, was in style, then it went out of style, and then went back in style. He was able to wear the old suits, and it was still good. It didn't rub out, it was expensive, it was good suits, so it lasted. The more sophisticated the creation, for some reason, why is it that human creation, the more sophisticated, the less the potential goes down as time goes on? And let's do on the flip side on God's creation. So we know that God's creation falls into 4 realms, right? Domech, Tzemach, Chayim, Medaber, which in simple terms, it's just, there's there's inanimate objects like a rock, dirt. Then there is plant life, which is a little bit higher. Then there is an animal world, and then there's the human world. Those are the four realms. So when you look at rocks, dirt, they just exist. Plant and animal is also about survival, but they have to do a little bit more. So a plant needs sunlight, it needs rain, it needs something more. An animal has to actually go and to get its food, as opposed to it just coming into it like through the sun or through the rain. So when you look at an animal, for example, it starts off with very low potential. A seed starts off with very low potential. If it has the right environment, it's able to survive. The seed is able to survive, and the animal it needs a little bit, but it needs something to help it survive. As the animal or the plant grows, the potential grows. The ability to accomplish more grows. So in a man's creation, as time goes on, the potential decreases. As God's creation, as time goes on, potential increases. A baby has only a certain amount of potential. As it gets older, the human gets more and more potential. We have more potential today than we had yesterday because we gained knowledge, right? Even though we didn't focus on it, it could be subconscious knowledge, but we gained more. To tell your wife certain things based on the knowledge that last time you did it wasn't such a good response. So you learn, even subconsciously, what to do. So humans, animals, but as time goes on, we increase our potential. Man's creation, as time goes on, there's a decrease on potential. Now, unfortunately, and this is the point that I want to bring home, is when you speak to people, they say, so how's it going? And, they say a common thing is hanging in there day by day, So what you're doing is that you're surviving. An animal survives. A plant survives. We're not there to spend our days and just like let it go by. And day by day, we're living, we're surviving. We shouldn't be just surviving. Animals survive. the potential stops by survival. An animal is not going to start an organization. It doesn't have the potential for that. A human being has the power, the potential to do so much. So we have to stop living life in an animal or an inanimate object or whatever it is. We have to realize we have so much potential, and today's potential was greater than yesterday's potential. And the beauty of it is that to achieve potential, you don't have to start organizations. When you grow in the spiritual realm, you're achieving potential. You're sitting and you're learning today a little bit more. You just gained potential. So you gain more than you had yesterday. So my message, my final message, this is a thought that I had yesterday, and I think it's a powerful idea.
Love it.
Is that we have to stop, surviving, and we have to start living to our potential.
Amazing, Rabbi Zitron. Very, very powerful final message, very powerful Torah talk in general. The importance of having gratitude, the importance of being happy, the importance of having good relationships, all one in the same. And Rabbi, we want to thank you for joining us on Torah Talks.
Thank you for
Chazaq Tuesday Torah Talks with special guests. We encourage everyone to visit us every single Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, chazaq.org/live, along with many other platforms, including Torah Anytime. And if you have something called social media, Chazaq has all those stuff, and you could join and follow as well. We want to dedicate tonight's shir for the complete refuah shlema of Rav Moshe ben Rezel, and dedicated in loving memory of Gavriel ben Frecha. We want to thank the Rabbi once again, and looking forward to seeing you all. And Bezat Hashem B'Sarot Tavot, we see the Geulah Shema to come. Speeding the days of complete redemption. Amen.